Finally Home is a must-read, step-by-step guide that will equip any first-time homebuyer with the knowledge they need to confidently make informed decisions. This book provides answers in simple and clear terms to most, if not all, of the questions you may have about credit, homeownership, and generational wealth. Finally Home equips the reader with the confidence to be engaged with the home buying process without feeling vulnerable or exploited. Tayla made real estate easy is not just a catchy hashtag. It is real estate agent and radio personality Tayla Andre's goal. A goal to simplify one of the most challenging processes you will go through as an adult. A goal to educate you properly on credit and teach you the strategies to finding the home of your dream. It is not just a good book or an easy read. It is the secret to a seamless home buying experience. Yay!
From saving your home from foreclosure to walking you through the process of becoming a first-time homeowner, Tayla makes real estate easy. With your best interests at heart, knowledge of the market, and a passion for people, Tayla is dedicated and motivated to serve you.
Good rising, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I am Tayla Andre, and I am determined and dedicated in assisting you in all of your real estate needs. Give me a call at 617-459-0041. Again, that number is 617-459-0041. Or you can email me at taylaandre@thumbprintrealty.com. I am Tayla Andre. Waking up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. Yesterday was so dope. Yesterday's conversation was absolutely effing amazing. It was exactly what we needed at that time. I loved it. And to jump off that cliff into this one, just like it's seamless. The way life works is so beautiful, and I absolutely appreciate it. Today, we have City Councilor Michelle Wu in the building. And on top of her being in the building, she is running for president. So not only are we going to talk about city stuff. She said, no. She's running for mayor. Hey, listen, that wouldn't be too bad if you were the president, though.
I would not want that job.
Michelle Wu is not running for president. Michelle Wu is running for the mayor for the city of Boston. I'd vote for you. I'd vote you in, though. City Councilor Michelle Wu, the last time we had you on was really, really quick, talking about, ta-da, I'm running for mayor. Come back me, support me. But today we're going to get a little deeper into some of the issues and really get to know Michelle Wu as the candidate for mayor. And so we do have a couple questions as far as city council is concerned, and then we'll jump into mayor. But first and foremost, how are you and how are those babies?
That's okay. I just kind of shooed them downstairs to my mom's. It's been a lot. We're still going through this home remote learning situation, and then everybody's schedules are off just because my husband and I have been so stressed about the election. We're all waiting. So it's been a lot. I think this is the end of a really long year, of a really long presidency, and we're this close to seeing the resolution of that. But the family life has kind of gone into chaos during it.
Okay, that just makes me feel better because even the electeds are having problems, because I know a lot of parents are. And let's just jump into that. As far as city council is concerned, what have you all been doing in order to alleviate some of the stresses that parents are going through with the trials and errors of BPS, trying to figure out and navigate this space as well?
Yeah, there's been a lot of oversight hearings and conversations and trying to demonstrate just how stressful things are right now. You know, I'm kind of on my second time around as being a BPS mom. I raised my sister when my mom came down with mental illness. And so I basically became her guardian when she was in middle school. And so we went through the whole high school process then. And then now it's kind of round two for me with my 5-year-old who is in K2. And then his little brother's 3. So didn't get spot in the lottery, as to be expected in Boston, because there are so few seats for 3-year-olds. But, knock on wood, next year the lottery will go better, given sibling preference and all that. So I think when it comes to the school reopening process, the theme has been uncertainty, and lack of planning, right? We didn't even get a draft reopening plan until late in the summer, right? We knew when schools shut down last March that this is probably where we were going to be this fall. Cases still accelerating, people are now having to gather indoors more because the weather is getting colder. And this is what always happens. I mean, the scientists have been telling us this for a long time, that this is probably, going to be a second surge. So it's been really frustrating to see that parents, teachers continue to be, family members continue to be left out of a lot of the decisions. And that, one thing that you'll think that there's one rule in place or one set of plans, and then, the next week, everything is kind of all up in the air again. So that's really what it's felt like for us, just like not being able to even plan our lives out around what the school situation will be.
So, two things. The first thing is you mentioned having a 3-year-old and not being able to get a spot in lottery. So, being a city councilor and understanding like some level of privilege, being an elected official, being able to rub elbows and still like not being able to have access. Personally for you, how has this been a fight in the background for other parents going through similar experiences?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a bunch of pieces that also fit into that too. So it's one that we're just short so many seats, and we don't have the experience of being able to go sign up for the lottery and know that, okay, it might not be your top choice school, it might not be the closest one to you, but you'll be given something. Like, that is not even the baseline right now. The baseline is that you won't be given anything because all of our seats don't start to open up until age 4, and even then it's not everyone who signs up through the school lottery can get a seat. And then it's really, we're kind of, as a society, pretending that kids magically appear when they're 5, and then we start paying for them and taking care of them and all that, when we know from a scientific and health and educational perspective that 0 to 5 is huge. 0 to 3 is huge. And so if we want kids to have that strong start, have that foundation, we have to look at it as an investment. I have been, when I was council president, and there were 4 women serving on the council, we did a year-long series on childcare, early education, what the barriers were, in terms of cost, in terms of the hours, right? Families who either work in healthcare or in construction and therefore don't do the 9 to 5. Like, there's not options for childcare for that either. And so there's been a set of recommendations that came out of that the city, I think, we need to see much more progress on. But if nothing else, during this pandemic, we've seen you can't have an economy to reopen unless working families, parents, caretakers, grandma and grandpa who are stepping in, unless there's childcare, and whether that's in schools being open or in, childcare facilities for the younger kids. This is not sustainable. It's not healthy. There's a ton of mental health issues being layered on top of, for the kids, even given the situations at home. So, we're trying to figure out in our household. But as you said, I'm really lucky. I'm in a 2-earner household. We both have jobs, and it's still incredibly, incredibly difficult. And we have not at all gotten our priorities straight in terms of thinking about this recovery and this reopening.
And for those who don't know, $17,000 a year is what it is annually for a mom with a young child that needs daycare. And that is at $17,000, that's like a basement facility with 300 square feet. That's not even like an actual daycare with a daycare teacher that your child is fully ABC'd in 1, 2, 3 by the time they're 3. Like it really is a feat, not just in the city, but it's actually a national problem across America. But and if you don't have young kids, you don't really care.
Yeah, Massachusetts has the second highest cost in the country, though. So, in terms of where we are in the national problem, we're pretty high up there in putting the burden on those who can least afford it.
Okay, so out of the box thoughts. Joe Kennedy, we interviewed him when he was running, and he mentioned that his wife instilled in him the importance of early education. And so he was working on, just like you said, they don't appear at 5 and like, okay, now educate me, like being able to start by the time they're born and then guiding them through the system from there. And so maybe that's a conversation that can be had to see where he was thinking as far as like either mayor, city councilor, like how can we use this idea, even though you didn't win, Joe, we still love you. How can we use that moving forward? Also, I don't know how sustainable it is, but how many grandparents that currently have like in between jobs, not really even careers, but like jobs just for sustainability of whatever their bills may be to subsidize whatever retirement they may be receiving or SSI or whatever. How possible is it to get these grandparents certified so that they can get paid through whatever system is currently out there to take care of these babies? And first and foremost, I want to be clear that I am a huge advocate of elders raising youth because that's what happens in a village, and we're supposed to have our village. But also there's a different level of respect. Yeah. There's it like people are raised different when they're raised by their grandparents versus their wayward parents that had kids at 20. So just being honest, just throwing it out there. I don't know how sustainable it is. I don't know if it's doable. I don't know. It's just something to throw out there.
So I think there's really something there because we know that the barriers, he was kind of off screen, but my 3-year-old came and dumped like a bunch of things he wanted to show me in my lap of cookie. I was like, I don't know where you got this, but okay. So the barriers aren't just, it's not that we, don't have people wanting to do this. It's not that we're, desperately trying to find qualified people and they don't exist or anything like that. It's that we make it really hard for qualified people who don't have a lot of resources to get through that licensing certification process. And I have heard from so many childcare providers during this pandemic that it's been incredibly difficult to comply with all the new regulations without any help or resources, right? Like no funding for, not a lot of funding for PPE, not a lot of support for new spaces because now they, can only take half as many kids in the same size rooms. And so to keep up the same finance structure for these places to survive, they actually need more rooms and more spaces, but there hasn't been a lot of support there. So a lot of them are shutting down. A lot of them closed during the early part of the pandemic and just aren't planning to reopen again, particularly the ones that are these home-based, someone who raised their own kids and now has the space in their yard and in their home, just like some of the most loving people and spaces to be in are not seeing that it is possible to keep going. And I think we also have seen a drop off in terms of kind of this next generation of the workforce feeling like they can step up and open childcare, centers and facilities. So we need support, even just in the technical assistance of like, okay, here's how you get licensed, here's how you get trained. A lot of folks going through and getting their degrees in early education and on track to, try to get a job as a pre-K teacher or kindergarten teacher, or getting, snapped up by private schools. But like, how could we support people becoming the business owners themselves as well, particularly in immigrant communities, in communities of color, those who are looking for something in retirement? There's a ton of potential in there, and we need to make sure to just connect the pieces and open that access up to this workforce that is amazing and I think would add so much to families who are really struggling right now if we could just help them get off the ground.
I totally agree. Education, sticking in the vein of education, an elected school board, sí or no?
Hybrid for me. So
what does that mean?
Okay, so there's some amazing, like, shout out to Kristen Johnson, BPS activist, who for her grad degree, for her thesis or dissertation, went back and researched the entire history of how we got from an elected school committee to an appointed school committee. And what I learned in that process of going through her research is that there are actually a bunch of other options considered along the way, but the kind of business forces made sure that nothing else was considered except for a fully appointed committee. And one of the ones that kind of had consensus along the way was, what's called a hybrid structure, where I think they were proposing 4 members to be elected and 3 to be appointed, or maybe it was 5 and 4. I think it was 4 and 3, so that there would be some members who were directly democratically accountable and elected representatives, and then some who could be insulated from the politics of it. My own concern, again, this is not the decision of any one person. This is about creating spaces for us to have honest conversations about what's wrong with our current system. And there's a lot wrong there. We don't have an accountable system right now, so things need to change. But my personal opinion at this moment is that I know what it's like as a city councilor needing to run for re-election. I know what happens to our council agendas in the months right before the election when you're busy raising money and doing candidate forums and going out and being shaking hands and all that. The council agenda really does dry up those couple meetings before the election. And so if the entire committee has to worry about fundraising and has to worry about all of that, I think given the demands of this particular committee to be in charge of the schools, I would just want to make sure that there's some folks there as well who don't have to worry about that, who don't have to feel like we're, thinking about the influence of money in politics and all that. No matter what, right? No matter where we settle for, whether it's a fully elected or a hybrid or whatever change to the structure, it is a long process to change that. We have to change the city charter, which involves a ballot initiative, a referendum, changes, and then more to adopt those changes. It's probably at least a 4-year plus process.
Hold on. 4 years. Can you please? Pretend we know nothing about anything. How exact? So we start today, Michelle. We say we're done with the appointed school board, and we want some electeds, and we want. What about like community decision? That has to be elected. Like it can't be like community appointed.
Yeah,
or is that election only?
So I want to say 2 things. So one is that even if we didn't go through this whole process, which I'll describe in 10 seconds, even before we do that, tomorrow, if the mayor wanted to, he or she could commit to say, okay, even while it's still appointed, I'm going to guarantee that I will only appoint the people that certain BPS stakeholder groups elect, right? So one of these seats I'm going to appoint is going to be designated for whoever the citywide parent council elects. One of the seats will be for whoever, teachers elect. One will be for an alumni. One will be for, school leader or whatever it is. That could happen right now if the mayor were willing to be accountable to the people. In fact, what we've seen is the opposite, where school committee members who have been appointed and then pushed back on the mayor's decisions, pushed back on the budget or others, were then kicked off the committee, right, and not brought back. So we kind of have the opposite situation now. So anyway, the long-term process to change this, I should back up and say there's a couple different places where rules around the city are set, right? The one that can change most immediately is just if something's a policy from the administration in an internal rule. And those are just the decision based on whoever is the mayor. Those are things like, what days trash gets picked up, right? How people reach out and submit their constituent requests. All those things, we could change it tomorrow, depending on if the mayor wanted to change it. The next level up is city ordinances. So these are city level laws that the city council and the mayor have to agree on. And these can also be changed basically anytime, but there's a longer process because the council has hearings, we bring people in, we vote on it, and then the mayor has to sign it into law, et cetera, et cetera. But those can kind of still be changed year to year. Oh, and there is one rule around that, is that when the council votes on something for the year, we can't touch it again until the next year. Otherwise, there might be some, I think this rule is put in place just so it wasn't like this constant back and forth that would suck up all the energy for what we were doing. So there's kind of like a window every year where we can reevaluate the ordinances on the books. And then there's like the hardest level to change, which is the city charter. It's kind of the equivalent to the Constitution, right? It's like our foundational document, and there's very specific pathways that make it harder to change that. At the city level in Boston, to change the charter, which governs the basic structures of government, the fact that we have 13 counselors and 9 of them are district and 4 are at large, that they're elected every 2 years, the fact that we have an appointed school committee, these like very, very basic things. You have to have, there's like a couple routes where you can trigger a proposal to change that, but then it usually goes through at least one round of ballot initiative where you'd have to either get signatures or have the council propose something and vote on it. Then it goes on the municipal ballot to trigger a change to the charter. You can create a charter commission then to then do some work for a set period of time to propose changes to the charter. And what they recommend would then go on another ballot to be voted on by the people. And so because the charter is about the things that are so fundamental, it requires the most people to weigh in. It requires a full sort of vote by all of the voters of Boston rather than just the 13 counselors to change something. But it also means it takes longer to get that all the way done.
Thank you for clarifying that. So, question stemming from that response is, why didn't we start 4 years ago? No, seriously, why didn't we start 4 years ago? And why are we, why are we dragging this out? Why are we procrastinating? We know for a fact that the city of Boston parents don't like what's happening, don't like what's going on. Why hasn't measures been taken in order to at least make this first step? There's no executive order on a mayoral level. Like the mayor can be like, listen, we're doing this thing.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I did forget executive orders, which probably go in that first category. But an executive order couldn't change something that is in the city charter. So this would have to go through that full process. And I think the answer is pretty simple to your question of like, well, why didn't we start earlier? It's because whether it's this or the BPDA, the Boston Planning and Development Agency, or also known as the Boston Redevelopment Authority, when you have structures that concentrate the power in the hands of the mayor, of one person, you need that one person to agree to give away their own power. And you need someone who's willing to run and say, I promise and commit that this is something that I'm going to do. And in fact, that has happened time after time with the BRA as well. Even this mayor committed that he was going to make major changes and get rid of the separate planning.
I think he said dismantle. I thought dismantle was the word that was used, and we have not seen dismantlement yet. No, exactly. And so what I, and again, I'm proposing these things, I'm making these commitments, and I understand people are remembering like, oh, Mayor Walsh said this when he was running, right? So-and-so said this when they're running. You're not going to do it either. But that's why we went even further and said, not only am I going to commit to do this, I am laying out the legal steps, in this 70-page document that we put out about abolishing the BPDA to say, this is how we get it done. This is how I prove to everyone that we're not going to just get in office and then say, oh, sorry, too hard. We don't know where to start, or we need the state to help us. There's a lot you can do. In that case, at the city level, you could have the BPDA basically undo itself if you had a mayor appoint members of the board to dissolve the board. School committee is a little bit different, but again, you can get there. You can immediately make some changes right away by saying, as mayor, I'm going to give away my power to dictate who gets appointed to these seats by committing that this group is going to elect one seat, this group will elect another seat, etc. Okay, so one of the questions that came in was whether or not counselors, so not you specifically, but all of you and your colleagues, whether or not anyone has been pressing the mayor to change the Black Removal Authority from their quasi-governmental grimy hands.
Wait, sorry, say again. Which authority?
The BRA.
Oh, yeah.
They should.
Black Removal Authority. Okay, got it. I see. Yeah.
So I have a theory. The theory is like, for me, the BRA was getting so much heat at one point in time that they were like, listen, if we change the name, like the club got shot up. We changed the name, no one's going to know we got shot up. And so we're like, we're just going to change our name. And for a long time, nobody could find the BRA because website was changed, Facebook was changed, and then we found them. And they're still doing what, Michelle, like they literally built the entire seaport without permission.
So the new name, the BPDA, right? It's up in the air. Does D stand for development, like they say, or is D displacement, right? Because that's what we're experiencing all across the city. And the decisions that this agency has made during one of the biggest building booms in our city's history ever, we have not seen that wealth close gaps. We have not seen that wealth stabilize Black and brown communities. We have only seen it go to increase the number of luxury units in the city, and in places like the seaport, really even further disconnect people from what is rightfully theirs, right? Access to the waterfront, one of Boston's best resources, and you go there and it's kind of this corporate box land. Nothing is affordable. There's no community space, even for the residents who live there. And many of them are artists who had been there for decades, who have been begging and fighting to have some artist space, live work spaces. And people still don't have, there's no library, there's no school, there's no people of color who have had, bought mortgages there. And so we have seen what happens when you just let go and basically let anything happen that wants to in the development market. Our job as government, one of the strongest powers that we have at the city level, is to set the rules around what goes. How high can you build? Where? How much affordable does there need to be? How can we guarantee that there's open space and access to food and transportation and schools? And we haven't done planning as a city, citywide, since 1965, when the very first citywide plan that made our zoning code went into place, right? Our base zoning code literally still dates back to 1965. And we've tweaked some neighborhood parts of the code here and there and are kind of rotating through, but it doesn't all fit together in a way that makes sense. And other cities have a planning commission. They have a structure where they review their citywide plan every 5 to 10 years. They can take into account, where is gentrification happening the fastest? Where are we seeing flooding from climate happen that's, pushing out Black and brown residents even more, frontline immigrant communities? When we just sit back and let the developers tell us what they want to do, and then push a little here and there on the sides, there's gonna be no one left in Boston who is able to afford.
So we've done that. I feel like that's been done already so we've spoken like really quickly on Twitter about the numbers for the South End Seaport District, whatever it's called, South End Waterfront. And for me, those numbers didn't represent the actual South End Waterfront, but also integrated some of the South Boston projects. And so I want the numbers for the development that was made. And for the last 8 years, you've been in office, forgive me, for 4, correct?
No, 7.
7.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So 7, and out of those 7 years, when they built, what was the pushback specifically from you? Because nobody else is here to defend themselves. For you, what was the pushback? No, you're not gonna, back in the 80s, what was it? Tito Jackson's stepdaddy, Mel King, and Byron, a bunch of our community members said, nah, this is not happening. Remember when Tent City came to a halt and nobody could build? And that was the president. And you said the city council has their own set of laws, which are ordinances. And we have the minimum, the diversity minimum. And a lot of these projects don't have diversity minimum. So how are these people breaking the law, B, not being fined for it, C, not being held accountable, and D, if I was doing the same damn thing, I would have all of these liens and all of these issues coming to my house, coming to my doorstep. Let me redo my driveway without a permit. It's a problem. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But yet we just watched an entire community be built and nobody was held accountable for anything, and it just happened.
Yep. Yeah, and I think a lot of it is about plans and promises that were made even more than 5 years ago. So a lot of what's happening now or has happened over the last 5 years has been in motion for a while. I think there's a couple things I want to mention. One is that I have been pushing in my role as chair of the Planning, Development, and Transportation Committee to push back and ask questions in a lot of cases. The council doesn't have a direct say over development. That was done very intentionally. The council used to be much more involved, and they kind of slowly concentrated power into the BRA to be able to have less direct democratic accountability. I was very involved and I think asked questions and supported a coalition around Whitett Circle, where this administration was going to host the Olympics and put the Olympic Stadium right in that area, right next to there, in the kind of under the highway between South End and South Boston, under 93, where there's the city's tow lot right now. Like, you know, I've been there to retrieve my car before. So first we were going to give it away to the Olympics to put the Olympic Stadium there. Then when people rose up and started asking questions, including Councillor Jackson, then that went away. And then it was proposed again to be sold off to be a soccer stadium, right? That was going to end up moving the salt pile and a lot of the snow removal tools that we have there into some other neighborhood, right? Creating another environmental justice neighborhood. And then put a huge facility in a place where we're going to see a lot of flooding in years to come, where we weren't seeing a lot of commitment to MWBE numbers, minority women in business enterprise numbers. We weren't seeing a lot of commitment to affordable housing. Like, this is one of the prime places left in the city where we should be digging in on what we can squeeze out of there to help people now, right? Housing that people can afford, climate protection, transportation access. And so it was really because of my committee asking questions that we don't have a soccer stadium there today. It was kind of signed and almost ready to go at that point. Another big development that was going to be pushed through. And then on the, on the neighborhood level stuff, it's been like a fire hose. I think trying to deal with a system that is so broken and in some ways borderline corrupt or openly corrupt in some places, to be able to say we need to look at the systemic problems here. This agency has to go, and we have to create an actual planning department that is responsive to people, to set rules, change our zoning code so that it's based on 2020, not 1965, and then hold people to those rules and make sure that we are not just project managers for, wealthy developers, but planners to think about the future of the city.
I'm a little annoyed. I get annoyed easily. So I'm annoyed because I don't feel like there's not like a clean cut answer. Like the BRA, because that's who they will always be to me, built an entire community. I want to know why nobody stopped them. That's it. Like, why didn't and why isn't nobody stopping them now? Like, they're building a micro community in a community in the South End right now. Like, I think it's like a 50 acres or like 30 acres of land, and they're just building mind you, the Bartlett Yard has been sitting there for the last 10 years trying to be built. But I saw the sign a year ago, and people live there. Like, why hasn't anybody stopped them?
Okay, so here's the clear-cut answer, and I think that's totally fair. That it's just like blabbed on. The clear-cut answer is that, given the history in our city, we can get into it. We have made decisions and changed policies so that the entire power to regulate development sits in the hands of the mayor. And when we have a mayor who wants to see development happen, to be able to generate, squeeze things out of those developers or generate taxes to pay for other things, for whatever reason, if to have more development is the goal, the mayor will make that happen. And there's very little that the city council or others can do. That's why I'm running for mayor, to make sure that we are changing the structure of how these decisions are made, so that we're not putting it in an agency that is accountable to no one, right? The BRA there's no way for the council to vote to limit their budget or to do anything. We can't touch them. that was done purposely to shield them, to shield the mayor from that. And
and this was done 7 years ago, correct?
No, the changes to the BRA.
The quasi-government, so they've been quasi-governmental now for years and years and years, but recently, like within the last 10 years, we gave them like full authority to do what the F they want.
So it actually happened. Okay, so the BRA was created in the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. It was at first part of a federal program. Then the funding dried up for that federal program, which was called Urban Renewal. A lot of the reason why the federal government ended that was because of the example in Boston of the West End, when we saw some 20,000 people displaced and promises of affordable housing that would be brand new, that they could come back to, totally false. And so other cities said, whoa, that's not where we want to head, of just destroying entire communities and neighborhoods and building these tall towers in its place. Boston didn't go the way of those other cities, though. When they got rid of their local redevelopment authorities, we actually strengthened ours. Instead, we got rid of our local planning commission. We used to have an independent planning board in Boston, like many other cities in Massachusetts have. We got rid of that and gave those powers to the BRA, so they were even stronger. And then one of the key things that happened after that was in the 80s, the BRA decided to go off the books. So they used to be accountable through the city budget process to the council, but then there was a proposal that they would just pay for themselves, that they owned enough property where they could collect rents and fund their own operations, and they wouldn't have to take anything from the city budget. Some councils,
because they took everything from families. Those were all of those crack houses. Those were all of those people that were strung out, that didn't pay their taxes, that couldn't pay their mortgage, and without giving them any type of out or like restoration or it was nothing. The city just started gobbling up properties. It wasn't we can fund ourselves. It's we done stole enough. Robin Hood. We didn't do that. So basically, there was little to nothing that the city councilors could do but yell and scream at the mayor, which does not create a healthy relationship, and why y'all don't have a healthy relationship now with the mayor, because he want to do his own thing, but yet who holds the mayor accountable?
The people in 2021.
Okay, good answer.
I'm doing my best for that accountability.
Okay, so thank you. So first and foremost, I have to say that this has been a long conversation that nobody wanted to have an honest nobody wanted honest dialogue, and it was finally amazing to understand. And this has been 7 years, Carlos? How long have we been on air asking the same damn question and getting no answer? We don't know. You have to talk to this person and talk to that person and I've been literally around the city. They passed me around like a thought, but no answers. Today, I got a good answer. And so I thank you for that. And that is 10 years of appreciation, Michelle, if you know anything.
Well, I want to shout out all the folks and all the advocacy organizations who have been pushing this issue for a really long time to say we need to get rid of the BRA. And so, I put out the 70-page report, which goes through the whole history of how it was formed and the legal steps to get rid of it. But that was building on the work of so many generations of activists. And so there's been a lot of that happening in the city for a very long time, right? Like dating, all that we saw with Mel King and Tent City. All via Victoria, that all fits into the same fight that we're still having today. And we've, I think when I read Carolyn Crockett's book about the fight to stop the highway in Boston, right, all those decades ago, it's a really strong reminder that we can make a difference, right? We can, when people rise up. We have done it before in Boston. It takes tremendous turnout, and that's why, if nothing else, right, I'm fighting to earn every vote, and I, certainly we're looking to map out our numbers and pathway to victory for the election, et cetera, et cetera. But my real goal is I want turnout in the city of Boston to be 200,000 next year, right? We see turnout 220, huge numbers in the state, in the governor's race, in the presidential race, and then it drops down to like 50K in the city council races. 110,000 people came out to vote when Councillor Jackson ran against Mayor Walsh in 2017. If we are at 200,000 people coming out to vote, there is no way that we're not going to see change at the mayor's level and at all of the councilors level as well.
Carlos, I gotta agree, Carlos. Like I'm really feeling the honesty. I'm really feeling the vulnerability here. And I'm really feeling like the deep dive of the history of who we are and knowing how we got here. So I'm with Carlos 100%. I do appreciate that. Yesterday, we had a conversation with the New Democracy Coalition, and Julia Mejia, who is here, Power to the People, Julia Mejia, put out, a hearing. What is it called that she put out this thing saying that she's going to have a hearing? What is the terminology?
A hearing order.
Yes, okay. So Julia put out a hearing order yesterday, and that hearing order is specifically for the commercial space across the city of Boston to ensure that Black and brown people have a space at the table, because right now we're not in the Seaport. Right now we're not in Faneuil Hall, right? Like across the city where big business booms.
We brought up too. Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm. And so since we are not in these spaces, she is as the chair of the business committee.
I think it's small business and workforce development. Is that right, Councilor Mejia? I think there might be one other topic in there too, but
something like that.
Yeah.
What she also added was a young man's name by Faneuil and changing the Faneuil Hall name. And so yesterday we spoke with Kevin Peterson, and Kevin said that he had a conversation with you after Andrea Campbell cut the lights off on him, that you were going to spearhead a hearing order for the renaming of Faneuil Hall, but it hasn't happened yet. Is that something that you are still committed to?
So the hearing order was written and drafted. Small business and workforce development. It was actually a little bit broader than just that one. It was definitely a key part of what we had worked on. And this was in partnership with now our council president, but this was last term, then Councilor Kim Janey, as well as Councilor Lydia Edwards. And so the three of us had gotten in a room with the New Democracy Coalition, and the goal was to have a hearing about the ways across the city in which our placemaking, our monuments, our building names, our spaces don't reflect the heritage of all of Boston. And so we had some language in there also about the Women's Heritage Trail. We had some language in there about how in all of Boston there's only one, Boston has one of the oldest Chinatowns in the country, and in all of Boston there's only one statue that features a person of Chinese descent, and it's Confucius, right? It's not like a Bostonian or anything like that. It's in front of one of the buildings in Chinatown, and so the goal was to put all that together. And I think there was a little back and forth about Kevin and his group, which I totally, there was just like a few little things of like they really wanted to focus on, can this be a specific conversation about Faneuil Hall, about restorative justice, about reparations. And I think we weren't quite there in terms of when do we file and what's the plan, because, to be honest, I can file stuff, right? Like you just throw it out there, it gets on there. But the question is then like, are you just checking the box and saying that you've done it? Or are you actually putting some muscle behind trying to get something out of it, right? So I like to be really intentional about what's the game plan for what are we trying to get out of this conversation? Like, is it that we are going to create a commission to talk about names and place names and how we're falling short? Is it that we're going to create a list for when I can say hi to my mama.
How are you, Mom? Good to see you. You want to take another kid? I got a 2-year-old. I will drop him off today.
So I think the goal is, okay, I would like to know how I can play a role in being specifically advancing this conversation as opposed to just throwing something else out there. And so, yes, I would love to play a part. I think Boston, one of probably the thing that's holding us back is that we have not come to terms with our history. And I'm talking about history like school committee, history like Faneuil Hall, all the way back.
Housing, The Color of Law. Have you ever read the book, The Color of Law? Yo, the fact that we are the example in that damn book more than Philadelphia is disheartening. Like, I won't even get there. That's a whole nother soapbox. All right. So you are for changing the name of Faneuil Hall, but under the guise of not just Faneuil Hall, but making sure there's fair representation across the city.
I'm not sold on just, I want to know that changing a name will bring about something real there, right? I think it's important to have these conversations. I will be eager to engage on making sure that we are talking about our history honestly and ways that we can change who we're lifting up and how we can better reflect all of our history. I have not yet publicly been like, okay, I'm sure that changing the name will make this set of things happen after that. But more and more people keep bringing it up to me that this is something that they want me to evaluate and weigh. And so
we don't have Hitler's name nowhere. Nowhere. We don't have, what's the general in Alabama that freaking killed everyone? The red coat. We do not have like killers, just, and monumentize people who did nothing but keep others as goods for their services. I understand what you're saying. I just want to be clear that. So have you ever taken any of the tours, the water tours around the Charleston, the tours for the Boston Tea Party, any of these tours? Have you taken them?
I went on a duck boat one time, a really long time ago. That was it.
So I say that to say I've taken some of these tours and I've taken them with family, but I've also taken them with the children when they go on field trips. There is no, unless you're specifically going to like the African Heritage Museum, like there is no speak of our racist history or the things that we have done as anyone. Like it just... So I'm with you as far as like symbolism of just a name change is not enough, but what is being done or what measure is being taken so it's not just to make sure that the tours properly have these facts. Do we own the tours or no? Can we change the tour? So we can't change the tours, but can the city have all-encompassing, this is the true history of Boston?
Yeah, and with the city, I mean, look at what the city does control, which is the names on all of our school buildings, right? The names on our community centers. And even if you look at that, they don't come anywhere close to reflecting the history of the city. And so, I had hosted a panel or a discussion a couple of years ago about the process of changing names and adding new names. And I think what the city could do, even if we don't own the tours, is to designate other stops that, of course, these other, tours would then be interested in adding on to their like lineup. And
so I am really excited so we're coming to the top of your hour, and I really wish that we could keep you longer, but you have clarified so many things in my soul, and I cannot express my appreciation. Really quickly, Wikipedia has dubbed you the first woman of color to serve as city council president. One of the questions was, do you consider yourself and your children people of color?
Yes, I do. And it's, I get where it comes from. It's like painful to me that I've been asked that question so much. I think Asian Americans are in a place in this country that is really unclear in a lot of people's minds, right? That I think if you look at averages for, how people are represented in the statistics around education or wealth, that a lot of times it comes off as people looking really privileged, and there are folks who are really, really privileged, right? But one big thing we've been fighting for in the Boston Asian American community is for data disaggregation, because when you peel away all the layers, like the neighborhood in the city that has the highest average poverty rate is Chinatown, right? And also the highest average rents. And so there's a lot there that I think sometimes gets glossed over when we're just talking about, oh, okay, we're going to mush everyone together, and there are people who are professionals who are doing really well, and then it kind of masks the experiences of folks who are more recent immigrants, really experiencing language barriers and discrimination, etc. On the other hand, I do want to just be really clear. I know, and I want to be totally clear that the experience of Asian Americans in this country, as painful as it is to be constantly thought of as a perpetual foreigner, and that you're not from here and this and that what some people experienced during the beginning part of this pandemic of folks moving away from us when we got on the T, or thinking that because we were bringing the virus over, kids were getting bullied in school and this and that. That is the daily experience of so many Black people in this country, and it has been since the beginning of this country. And so I've been trying to really focus on this moment to educate within my own community about our history, and yes, this is not about comparing any individual's suffering over another's, but to recognize that as a people, we are also part of a system of oppression, of racism, and we have been used to be pitted against communities of color, Black and brown communities. And as long as we perpetuate that, and as long as we let that happen, we will continue to empower that. And so a lot of this is, what does it mean to be an Asian American standing in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement? What does this mean to be an Asian American taking on the fight for racial justice, and what's our role in that, and how do we kind of bring the unique experiences of our community out to the forefront too? I think we need a lot of inter-community and within the community dialogue, because I know a lot of elders in our community who are like, well, I suffered through all this and that coming to this country, and I have to say to people, well, the only reason you were able to come to this country is because Black activists during the civil rights movement held open the door for everyone else to come as well, and to share in this in the opportunities. So I think there's still a lot of conversations that we need to have, and I hope I can be helpful in kind of elevating that and using it to expand the dialogue in Boston.
So this is a really difficult question for me to ask, so I can only imagine how difficult it's going to be to answer. One of your running mates, or somebody who's running against you, is a current colleague. What is the dynamic there? If you were not running, would you vote for her?
I think in this year, I think we don't know exactly what's going to happen with the shape of the mayoral race, right? We still don't know, is it going to be two candidates, right? Because the mayor still hasn't said anything. Will it be 3? Will it be 20 people? I am someone who remembers very vividly what it was like on the council when I first started, when it was just Ayanna and me as the only women, right, to serve on the council out of 13, and the only women of color ever to have been elected to the council at that point. And it was kind of, it wasn't that long ago, but it's just such a big contrast from the dynamic and the feel of where we are today, with a council that every single election cycle we have added more people of color, more women to this council. And you can feel it in how urgent the issues are, and how connected I think a lot more communities feel to the council. So I'm really excited that she's running. I have had the chance to work with Andrea on a lot of things. I think the more we can shatter this idea that power just belongs to people who have, in Boston have only looked a certain way and acted a certain way, the better. I think in politics, you never take anything personally, right? I'm someone who never expected to run ever. And growing up, no one ever was like, oh, you should run for whatever, because I was a young Asian American girl, right?
And you're an attorney, right? That was your profession. And do you practice law at all? Like, can I call you if I got some questions?
I mean, I'm a member of the bar, and so technically I could help, but the council is more than a full-time job, and now with this campaign, for sure, I haven't been practicing. But I think, if what comes out of Councilor Campbell and me running and whoever else might join us in the race is that people feel more excited about the options they have, that people feel like there's a chance to really understand what's happening at the city level, like all the questions that we just talked about. A lot of times it doesn't change because we don't get to the point where people are like, oh, that's on the mayor, or like, oh, that's on the council. Instead, we constantly told things have to be this way. There's no other way, right? You can't pay for it. You can't change it, this and that. And so in some ways, the more eyes on this race, the more people who get a call from any candidate, the more likely we are to break it down and say, this is why it matters for you to be part of this. And so I'm all for that. I think anyone whose heart tells them they should be in this race and run for office, by all means, I want you to run. I want you to strengthen our democracy. So I'm excited for what will happen in Boston over the next year.
That was beautiful. They're wondering, what type of law did you practice, or did you?
What I was doing when I was doing the closest to being a practicing lawyer, when I was still in law school, but doing like actual legal cases with people who were members of the bar, was immigration law at Boston Medical Center for Survivors of Domestic Violence.
And that was Lydia Edwards too. That's what she was doing prior to running for office, correct?
I think Lydia was the intersection of immigration law and workers' rights. And I was working on the intersection of immigration law and kind of health issues and domestic violence in particular. People ask sometimes, oh, does being a lawyer make you like more qualified, or how does it affect being a city councilor or an elected official? I mean, I think for me, it's nice to, because people always underestimate, I think, women and women of color, especially, to say like, no, actually, I do know what I'm talking about. Like I've gone to school, I've gotten that degree. Is it worth the debt that comes with it? Is it worth the, all of that? Like, I'm not sure.
She said, I got student loans too, baby. You ain't the only one. So we have ran up all of our time together. But my last question, as far as you being an attorney, what laws can we put in place so that the BRA can't do a damn thing? Like, how can we use your law degree to stop these motherfuckers from doing what they're currently doing and taking back our power?
They need to be abolished, is the short and sweet answer. And if anyone wants to check it out, our plan is on my website. We have laid out a document that goes through all the legal steps. To break it down, basically what it is that you need some state law to change the structure of it, but you could effectively take away all of its funding and its power, even just at the city level. So a new mayor could appoint new board members to the BRA, who would then, their one job would be to vote to close it down, basically to transfer all of the property over to the city. So instead of keeping their own funding source, they would give that back to the city rightfully. And then we would have the funding to create a city planning department to do those same responsibilities that they're supposed to be doing, but kind of get intermixed because planning and development are all tied up together. So once we dismantle that structure, then you work on a city plan for all of the neighborhoods and how everything fits together. You redo the zoning code, and then you hold people accountable to that code. I think it's predictability for residents, but it's also predictability for anyone on the developer side too. I mean, a lot of folks hate the system because there's no clarity on what the rules are. A lot of people say, just, whatever the rules are, tell us, we will make it happen. And we need to make sure that those rules match what our communities need: affordability, climate justice, transportation access, and food justice, and access to schools too.
City Councilor Michelle Wu running for mayor so she could change all the things that we don't like. Make sure you head over to the website. I went ahead and added it, michelleforboston.com, where all of her plans and her strategies are on the website. And so if you have any questions, head over there. We definitely open our doors to you, Michelle. Please come back anytime. And I like learning the actual reason why things happen. So please continue to come back and teach us the truth when everybody else is lying to us.
It's always fun to be on with you.
Have a wonderful day. Tell your mom I said bye.
See ya.
Waking up with Tayla Andre. If you don't mind, I would love a little break, but I'm really excited. For those who are just like now tuning in, and I don't mean now as in this moment, I mean now as in like 2020, I have been for years asking the same questions that I just asked Michelle. I've been asked when the mayor was on the show, when we had a conversation with the governor, when I asked everybody, the damn police commissioner, the MBTA police, like everybody got it. The workforce, what's his name? John Barrows. Y'all remember that conversation about John Barrows? We asked everybody who was part of the city if they had a .gov at the end of their name, a .ma at the end of their email address. The same question was asked. And when I tell you, I was joking, like they passed me around like a thought. But in real life, they passed me around from one department to another department to another department because nobody wanted to give me the correct answer. And the real answer is the mayor ain't shit. Period. And that's all I was looking for somebody to sit here and guide me to the right answer. And now that we have the answer, we know exactly what we need to do. First and foremost, the mayor is over here, the one talking about we can't do this and we can't do that, when he has all of the power when it concerns the housing market and the way that the housing market is set up. Period. So now that we know that, what are we going to do? I feel better now that I got that closure. Now that somebody answered the question honestly. I'm going to take a quick break. Y'all mind that? No? Thank you. I am Tayla Andre. Waking up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day we link up, but about waking up your third eye, where unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. And I hope you have an amazing day. Did I do this right? Clearly not. I want the knife. Okay, I give up. I tried. We'll be back.
Of fucking bullshit ass Trump supporters right here, guys. I'm here for fucking Biden. Come here, look at this shit. Go over here, zoom in over here. Go, you take your ass over. Come on.
I definitely learned something new today too. I really did. That was My apologies. I X'd myself out by accident. And so, 45, 47. Tayla made real estate easy. How y'all like my commercial? Y'all feeling it? Yes? No? Maybe? Y'all feeling it? Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think.
Finally Home is a must-read step-by-step guide that will equip any first-time homebuyer with the knowledge they need to confidently make informed decisions. This book provides answers in simple and clear terms to most, if not all, of the questions you may have about credit, homeownership, and generational wealth. Finally Home equips the reader with the confidence to be engaged with the home buying process without feeling vulnerable or exploited. Tayla Made Real Estate Easy is not just a catchy hashtag. It is real estate agent and radio personality Tayla Andre's goal. A goal to simplify one of the most challenging processes you will go through as an adult. A goal to educate you properly on credit and teach you the strategies to finding the home of your dream. It is not just a good book or an easy read. It is the secret to a seamless home buying experience.
Make sure you call me at 617-459-0041, TAYLAANDRE at thumbprintrealty.com. So let's get into this news. Shout out to All Aces Inc., Dr. Tia Martin. All of our diverse news comes straight from there, and it's because it's nobody else. It's all on me. Good rising, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I am Tayla Andre. Waking up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. I am so appreciative of the interview that we just had with Michelle Wu, because for the first time in literally 8 years, so maybe 10, close to 10, we'll say 8. 2011, it's 2020. We'll safely say 8 years. I have been asking the same question and finally got the answer that the mayor is worthless, and he is the reason why we are going through some of the housing crisis that we have right now in the city of Boston. And the city councilors consistently across the board keep saying, like, listen, we are trying, but the mayor has entirely too much power, and so we need to work on whether or not we're going to allow him to continue to have power, or we're going to give that power to somebody else to do the right thing. As far as news is concerned, again, shout out to All Aces Inc., Dr. Tia Martin's website that has this conglomerate of all the news that you could possibly want to read all in one space. That's intentionally All Aces Inc. You know what? I'm going to just put it in the chat for y'all so you can do it that way. Because if you anything like me, you are already slow and that's too much going on. Especially if you at work listening and you ain't supposed to be. It's already in the chat. As far as news is concerned, Black Kansas City activist says that she is being followed by police after her video. Remember the video that I played and she was at City Hall and she was dragging everybody? Yes. So that baby is saying that the police are following her. Her name is Kajaya Brooks. She's demanding the resignation of the police chief as she did a very passionate speech. It was absolutely amazing. I loved it. Since the viral video, she said that the police have been following her. She shared a video of police cars circling her around on multiple occasions. In one video post, she is seen confronting the officers that are following her. When I was sitting in my car and 818 drove through my private apartment complex, parking not once but twice but 3 times as I sat in my car and tried to intimidate me, not knowing I've seen the white girl in the passenger seat all day. There's a video, and it clearly is driving around. I have watched it, and it's ridiculous. She's also been getting like hate mail. I don't know if you guys pay attention, but if you look at your Instagram, let's open our Instagram and let's do a little teaching thing. You open your messages. So up here in the top, you have your messages, that little dot. And I'm saying that most of us know, when I tell you my daddy had no idea, he was like, oh, that's how you messaged me? Yes, daddy, that's what happened. So here, where that little dot is, that 2, you click on, well, I only have 2, but others, you'll have like your general, your primary, and then it will be like your unknown. So if you open your unknown, it's a bunch of people that probably you have never spoken to. You don't know them. You guys aren't friends. You don't follow them. They don't follow you. Or maybe they follow you and you don't follow them. But they're in there and there's messages. And she's getting hate messages like N-word. I want to shoot you in the face. If I see you, I'm going to choke you. I'm going to like rape you. Like crazy ass messages because she was telling the damn truth. That's what happens when you tell the truth. She's been called all types of words, and she was just like, so you went ahead and like created a fake account to stalk me? You have entirely too much time on your hands, which is true, and it's probably an elected official. And if you paid any attention to what was going on in that video, there was a lot happening. I'm not going to play the video again. I will go ahead and post it so you can find it and listen to it yourself. There is this new app that came out. I am really trying to learn another language. And so everybody already thinks that I speak Spanish, which I do not. Well, poquito, just a little bit. If anything, I speak more Haitian Creole than I do Spanish. But there is a new app, and I want to try it. And I want to know, like, before I just spend my money on stuff, because I want to be as frugal as possible, what apps have you used or what techniques have you used in order to learn a new language? I have like the basics down. Really, I don't, because I don't understand how like the adjective comes before the verb when your whole life is just like, this is how a sentence is structured, and then trying to like unlearn that to learn a new language. It's kind of difficult, and I'm a little on the slower side. And so I'm asking for you to help me. What is the easiest way to learn another language without adopting somebody who does not speak English? Yo, I'm that person though. So I was having a conversation with my best friend, Anari, one of my 2 best friends. And he was telling me, he was like, Mommy, do you remember when we went to Costa Rica? He said, I came back and my Spanish teachers said my pronunciation was on point. Like I was getting all A's. I can't learn Spanish with he does have an Asian Spanish teacher. I can't learn Spanish with an Asian Spanish teacher whose native tongue is not Spanish and doesn't understand like the ebonics of Spanish. And so what you learn in school is like Spain Spanish versus like Dominicans have their own, like a lot of, even Puerto Ricans can barely understand a Dominican when they speak Spanish. And so I personally want to learn the slang version because I don't see myself speaking professionally in Spain. I want to be able to speak to the tenants. So I want to learn Spanish. What is the easiest way? I'm ready to learn. Teach me your ways. So your president's absolutely batshit crazy, and he is suing everybody. So one of the concerns that a lot of people have, including Bernie Sanders, if you haven't seen the video circulating already, is the fact that, you know, Trump is not going to take this L easily. And with the race being as close as it currently is, even like 100,000 is still close. Like I never thought that he was going to get 7 million people to vote for him. That is a lot of people. Those are your neighbors. Those are your coworkers. Those are the people at the grocery store with you. Those are the people in your family. It could be sleeping right next to you. Like these are the people in our lives. 67 million Americans that don't care about your black life, your black business. They don't care about nothing about black nothing. one of the things I wanted to update you on. So yesterday we have Kevin Peterson, the New Democracy Coalition, and we were talking with him. He made some statements. Julia Mejia chimed in and said, let me set the record straight. Today, Michelle Wu chimed in and said, let me set the record straight. And as well as Flynn called us yesterday, because remember we tweeted him. Flynn called us yesterday and said that he was in fully support, and Julia Mejia just put out an order, and he was fully supporting Julia Mejia's order. And then I had to clarify that no, that it mentioned Fanuel, but it didn't mention the name change of Faneuil Hall. And so though her department and what she does is focusing on the businesses in market space, the bill specifically that Kevin was talking about regarding Flynn's district, because Faneuil Hall is in Flynn's district, and whether or not he was on board, he did not confirm nor deny, but said that he will circle back with us after he speaks with Julia Mejia. So Julia, if you are still here, I don't think you're here. So I'm going to send you a text message. Flynn said that he was going to circle back with you before he was going to contact me regarding whether or not he was for the name change of Faneuil Hall since it's in his district. Can you please let us know when you connect with him so I can then call him 5 minutes later? Thank you. Talk to text. If you ever get a text message from me and it says something completely that you don't understand, it's because I talk to text. It saves so much more time. In other news, the Ford Foundation president says that white CEOs need to recognize their privilege, which they should, but they currently do not, at least not 67 million of them. Wells Fargo CEO Charles Scharf received backlash after telling several black employees during a Zoom meeting earlier this summer that the bank had trouble reaching diversity goals because there weren't enough qualified minority talent. That is a lie. You just don't like us because we're not going to sit at your kitchen and be mammy and be told what to do. We're going to open our mouth and we're going to tell you what was going to happen and what we would like to see. And so as far as the talent in the diversity pool is concerned, you like Uncle Tom and Uncle Ruckus, and baby, what you gonna get is a Tayla Andre. And so that's the thing, that's the real statement that they should have made was there's not enough who are gonna go along to get along to go along. Whatever it is, there's too many of us that wanna be Julia Mejia's and Tayla Andres and open our mouth and tell you what the business is versus going along with the business. Two participants in the meeting told reports that Scharf made the comment in a company-wide memo on June 18th. While it may sound like an excuse, the unfortunate reality is there is a very limited pool of black talent to recruit from. And this was in the memo. Since then, many industry leaders have come together to address issues of diversity and inclusion in major companies. If you know anything about me, I am a Dr. Tia Martin fan. And one of the things she said, baby, like the fact that it's diversity and inclusion, like you can't include me in something I'm already in. Like this is not, and language is important, right? And so while we're over here like, I want to be included. No, I don't want to be included. I'm already included. You just have to acknowledge my presence. Like it has nothing to do with inclusion. Poppy Harlow, the Ford Foundation president, Darren Walker, spoke with CNN Newsroom and spoke out against remarks like these from white executives who overlook black candidates for these roles. It is the work of the next decade for corporate America and all Americans to help this nation heal from its division, heal from our history, but understand that together we can build a better America. He goes on to state how privilege comes into play when it comes to access to senior roles within these corporations, bypassing systematic effects of racial inequality that make many minorities facing this climb up the corporation like a daunting task. We have to recognize that it's privilege, which is basically a status that most white men in this country enjoy, and it's a barrier to everyone else. Their own privilege is a barrier to our advancement. Many white CEOs say things like, I'm a self-made man. I did this all on my own. You started with a skin color of white in a society that has a legacy of white supremacy. This is what we must talk about. Nobody wants to talk about the facts or the truth. This isn't the time. This is the time to speak out against companies of lack of diversity efforts and how corporate America refuses to take on these issues. I believe if you look at the state of representation across the board of public companies in America, regrettably, you will see tokenism. There is one black person. There is one woman. There is one gay. There's one. You'll see on the board typically one African American, one Latinx, and it's rare on a board to see 2 or 3 different African Americans out of 15, for example. And so we have work to do as the United States of America, which is extremely true. You can look across anywhere. In other news, Baltimore to pay $2 million settlement for the police hiring discrimination. The Department of Justice claimed that written tests given to recruits was intentionally biased against black applicants. Can we please have the DOJ come to Boston and let us know whether or not we have the same system? I would love that. The Baltimore County Police Department has reached a $2 million settlement, which is not enough because if anything, I could have made $2 million when I was on all these damn details. When you making $250,000 a year because you making $100 and something on a detail per hour, baby, these police officers go home with checks like they are the CEO of a company or a corporation. I'm trying to tell you. So $2 million settlement is not enough for me because I could have made $1 million in the first 10 years of me being a police officer. And how many officers have you actually discriminated against? I'm gonna need $2 million per person, and I say this because I'm so tired that we slap on the wrist Wells Fargo for discrimination, slap on the wrist Bank of America for discrimination. It's literally 0.0000% of their profit. It means nothing to them. You have to hit it where it hurts and get it in their pockets. You want to teach somebody a lesson, take away what they actually like. When I want to punish an Ari, I don't take away the damn phone. He don't care about a phone. I take away that PlayStation. When I want to take something away from Asaria, I don't take I'll leave her alone. I won't tell you what I take away from her. But it breaks her heart. You take away what hurts. You hit them where it hurts. And $2 million settlement with the Department of Justice as part of a discrimination lawsuit against black American applicants is not enough for them to learn their freaking lesson. It was previously reported that the DOJ sued the Baltimore County government last August, claiming that a written test given to police recruits was intentionally biased against black applicants. And the agency believes that the ploy worked because blacks failed the test at a much greater rate than white counterparts, resulting in few black police officers making it onto the force. The lawsuit noted that the difference was statistically significant. The suit alleged that applicants were tested on reading, grammar, logic, and other skills not related to the job of Baltimore police officer or cadet. The lawsuit accused Baltimore Police Department of pattern or practice of discrimination against black applicants and demanded that the city take immediate remedial relief to those who suffer discrimination and adopt appropriate non-discriminatory measures to correct the discrimination. Julian Jones, a lone black person on the Baltimore Police County Council, said last year that he was taken aback by the allegations, telling reports, "I am confident that the current administration is going to do anything and everything necessary to make sure that we are not discriminating against anyone." Under the settlement, that $2 million in back pay to eligible claimants and make 20 priority hires of individuals who previously failed the written exam. I have questions, though. I want to know what these questions were and how English, reading, and math has nothing to do with being a police officer, but everything to do with how you took the test and how that's discriminatory against black people. I also see it as maybe a possibility. No. Who was that? It was a baby that was recently shot. And the same attorney that was in the Meek Mill documentary was representing the family. And I absolutely love how he was like, we're not pushing for first degree murder because we understand that it was a mistake. This last baby that was just murdered in the street, when his family called the police, y'all have all the answers to all the questions. The police called the ambulance, and the family called the ambulance. The police came and they shot him. He was having a mental crisis. I'm going down like the list of 100 people that were killed by the damn police, and I can't think of his name right now. But the attorney said, and I think this is absolutely amazing, that they did not want to prosecute the officers. Like, they didn't want to go for murder one, or whatever that long list is. It was like involuntary manslaughter. They wanted something light and something tapped on the wrist, because he understood that they were not trained properly. And if they were trained properly, they would have done things differently. And the reason why this is so important, to me at least, is because I see the undertones of it, right? Because if I come at you and say, you're a murderer, that does nothing for the agency. That does nothing for the department. That does nothing to like put more resources in where they actually need them. But if I say that you are improperly trained, and I want to work on making sure you are properly trained, that's when you get to sneak in all the different types of like sensitivity training, and don't beat your wife training, and make sure you like black people training, and be fair and balanced training. And so I love, as long as it's a strategy and not just made up in my head, the strategy of saying that these police departments are not properly trained, and having this in court over and over and over again about police not being trained. You then get to hijack how they are trained, and those 6 months now turns into 18 months, and you actually have to do some damn coursework and learn about human beings and human interactions, instead of just like learning how to shoot and kill people. That's my soapbox for the day. The candidates that made history, I love this. Richie Torres, Mondaire Jones will be the first openly gay black congressman. A record number of Native candidates are also heading to Congress. And there are so many black women that won seats. And you know how many times, like, we're always like, oh, the first this and the first that. We read a story 2 days ago about the first pajama line with a black girl on it, owned by a black woman. Like, it's 2020. There are many states, cities and counties and towns that have never had a black person in, name it, elected position. And so I am so glad to see so many of us holding our positions and, claiming our power. That's exciting. A Detroit pastor says that black people have gone from picking cotton to picking presidents. I don't believe that to be true, but I am enjoying the fact that there are so many pastors in the South that are running for office. Whatever happened to the separation of church and state? I just have a couple questions. Alabama voters approved a measure to strike racism from the state's constitution, but a lot of Alabamians are still racist AF. We know this to be true, right? Absolutely. We've been there. We've lived there. They call you the N-word on a regular basis and think it's okay. On Tuesday, Alabama voters showed that many of them are genuinely interested in living in the 21st century by approving an amendment that could start the process of removing 119-year-old racist language from the state's constitution. As of last night, the Amendment 4 had 878,000 yes votes, which is 66%. In incomplete official returns, about 456,000, 32% voted against the measure, a symbolic measure that tells us, like, Alabama is still racist, right? I don't know why we're surprised. We shouldn't be. But the racist language... I want to find the racist language. I thought this was the article that had it. I'll find it. I'll read it later. But this was the article that I thought had it. Nope, I made a mistake. Oh, well. Mississippi. This one is surprising to me. I absolutely love it. We talked about it briefly, very briefly yesterday, but Mississippi finally votes for a less racist state flag. Alabama, to me, it kind of looks like a racist, like the Alabama state flag is white with like the red X, which is like really set to like it's just it has the sentiments of Confederate flag. And so really when I think of Alabama's flag, I think of what's the man who used to skin people? Ramsey. Ramsey's house with the man on the post and they skinned him alive. That's what Alabama's flag reminds me of, is House Ramsey. I don't even know what the boy name is. Ramsey skinning people. What was Ramsey's house name? The flay. No, was it the flay? Flaying is how you skin. Bolton. House Bolton. Ramsey Snow, Ramsey Bolton. That's what Alabama state flag reminds me of. The Bolton flag. But Alabama is not changing their flag. Mississippi is, which is huge because Mississippi is just as racist as Alabama. But apparently, you know, some things are changing. They received a 68% vote to change the flag. And the quote around the flag says, "In God we trust." At the bottom, it had the public voted no on the design. Legislators would have had the new flag. If they would have voted no, they would have had to like come up with something different. But I'm excited for the flag to be changed, period. Also, if you didn't know, April is considered Confederate Heritage Month. We're going to leave that there. California voted down a proposition that would have eliminated cash bail, which is really weird for me. And the reason why I say that is because California passed a proposition to restore voting rights for parolees. And so I don't know if you remember, but we went through the list of states that allow formerly incarcerated persons to vote. And we went down the list of states that don't let, so formerly incarcerated, if you have a felon. So Massachusetts allows formerly incarcerated felons to vote. Many states, I believe it was like 34 states, do not allow formerly incarcerated persons that have felonies to vote. California didn't even let parolees vote. So if you, like, regardless of your crime, if you're currently on parole, you could not vote. And so Proposition 17 backers claim that having the right to vote helps parolees reintegrate into society and may reduce recidivism, which is an amazing excuse. I don't think it really is, but, you know, it worked. And so Proposition 17 has passed, and now parolees, more than 50,000 parolees, have their voting rights back, and that's just today. That's not going to show like the other parolees in the future that will now have Ramsey Bolton. Thank you, Eves. Will then have the right to vote. For far too long, Black, brown Californians have been excluded from democracy. Today, California voters definitely righted that historic wrong. But while righting that historic wrong, they got another one wrong. Proposition 25. Could you imagine having like 25 different damn questions here in Boston? Like, people were mad at the 2 questions that we had. But Proposition 25 raised concerns that the bail system's replacement could still perpetuate racial discrimination. Duh. Californians voted against Proposition 25 in November 3rd general election, which would have made the state the first in the nation to completely eliminate cash bail. As of Wednesday, with more than 11 million votes counted, 55% of Californians rejected the measure versus 45% who supported it. By voting against Proposition 25, Californians shot down SB 10, a 2018 law that eliminated cash bail but never went into full effect due to a bail bond industry campaign against it. Critics have raised concerns that the system that would then replace cash bail using risk assessment tools and giving judges more discretion could further perpetuate racism and other inequities in terms of who gets held in detention and who doesn't. Proposition 25, opponents included Human Rights Watch and the ACLU of Southern California. The group warned about racial bias embedded in the risk assessment tools that rely on data already skewed by the criminal justice system's disproportionate criminalization of communities of color. And so how they felt was cash bail is better than the judge giving everyone bail. So instead of leaving it to the discretion of the judges, just leave it the way that it is. But the truth is, cash bail should not exist, period. Because when you take a look at, what was it? Charlie Sheen. So Charlie Sheen went, I don't know why he popped up, but when Charlie Sheen was out here giving people AIDS or herpes or whatever he was getting, and like they went ahead and took him in and booked him, and he went to jail. His freaking bail was like the same as a damn black man that sold drugs. Like, it was so low for a man that has so much money, but yet for the people who do not have the funds and actually have to put the house on the market. And a cash bail just means, listen, you have not been found guilty of anything. You were taken by the police and put in jail. You stand before me, I'm going to let you go. You're going to come back for your hearing. And to make sure you come back, I'm charging you X amount of dollars to make sure you come back. And once you come back, you can get your money back because that cash bail was just being held while we determine. But correct me if I'm wrong, Carlos, they hold cash bail all the way until like the actual case is done. So it's not like, oh, I came back for the first court case, let me get my money. Like, they hold that stuff until the entire case is dismissed, thrown out, or you go to jail. And so as a society, cash bail just, it doesn't make sense. Especially when you look at the Khalif Brodas of the world, whose family did not have $5,000. Meek Mill's documentary, his family did not have $5,000. I think they said that it took his family 3 months. His mother was selling plates, his sister was selling plates of food, and it took them 3 months to get him out of jail. And if you're working a full-time job, if you have kids, all of a sudden now, like if you have a court order to see your kids every other Sunday and a mother takes you to court and finds you in contempt that you're not like picking up the kid on Sunday, now all of a sudden you lose your right as a father. You just lost your job because your ass went to jail because you fit the description of somebody else, but you were too poor to go ahead and pay that $5,000 to make sure that you come back to court to plead your case. It's absolutely insane. Once you understand the system, you're like, Tayla, that's not the way it works, but it is. And it's harmful to a lot of families, period. And plus, there's not enough people, honestly, there's not enough people not going to court for there to be that much money in cash, in the cash bail system. And the bond, we don't have bail bondsmen here in Massachusetts. I've never seen them. But down south, they're on every corner, bails, bondsmen, and you like put your house up and put your car up and all your jewelry you could put up to get somebody out of jail. It's freaking insane. You're right. Nobody owns property put up, but they asking mama to do it. They asking grandma to do it. They asking somebody to put property up to do it. Not everybody has it, but those that have, that's the only alternative when you don't have money. Stuff like that annoys. Like, this is like, what is it called? Common sense. Like, common sense stuff like that is the thing that really annoys me the most, is because like we're not doing right by families. And if this was perpetuating in like poor white neighborhoods, they would be done with it automatically. Like, it would be on every ballot, on every measure for everyone to vote to get rid of it. But because it only affects Black and Latinos, no one's worried about it and no one cares. A state trooper of Massachusetts is fired after using racial slurs during an off-duty confrontation. While everything may be in flux today, there is one thing that will always be constant: cops being mad racist and dumb as hell. The latest incident of a cop being racist takes us to Massachusetts, where a rookie state trooper was fired after using racial slurs during a confrontation while he was off duty. He got into a confrontation with a motorist. The trooper, who is currently unnamed, was a rookie as a state trooper. They were a part of a recruiting training group that graduated in May, and they're still under a year-long probationary period. The races and names for either person involved of the incident was not given, and I wonder why, because all police reports are public record. And so unless it's a juvenile, unless it's a child, that's the only time that names and ages are protected, because it's a youth and young people. We don't do that as a society unless you're a police officer, unless you rubbing elbows with somebody and you trying to get your name out there. Not you're trying to protect your name because one of these other days, one of your other uncles of nepotism is going to give you a job elsewhere, and you don't want it to be in the news that you're racist AF. I'll leave that there. I'm disgusted and disappointed by the conduct that occurred, which is that it does not, that's not what we do. This is not how we expect our candidates to act. And this is from the state police superintendent, Colonel Christopher Mason. This subject is not fit to wear the badge or call themselves a member of the department. We will have no tolerance for such conduct. He went on to say the decision to fire the trooper came on Tuesday after the department found out about the incident. Mason has asked the Office of the State Attorney General to launch an investigation into the incident for any criminal or civil rights violation. Mason was appointed superintendent of the state police last year by Governor Charlie Baker. Officials said that Mason's appointment was intended to bring reform to the state police, and that's why we have been seeing a lot of the crackdown where the police officers doing their, off-duty thing and claiming time when they shouldn't be claiming time, and that's why it's been under intense scrutiny because Mason said he ain't having it. Christopher Mason. Well, does anybody have access to the state troopers? I would like to interview Christopher Mason. Who knows him? Can we make this happen? Colonel Christopher Mason. We're going to find him and we're going to get him. I'm going to tweet him. That's what we're going to do. Oregon. You guys remember the Oregon Trail? That was the first video game ever that we, not video game, but computer game. The Oregon, whatever, becomes the first state to decriminalize all drugs. Not marijuana, all freaking drugs. All of them. So I don't know if you are aware of this, but European countries have also completely cracked down on, criminalizing drug addicts, drug deals, and have saved so much money because they don't have these drug units looking and chasing and tracking people down. They also found that crime has decreased ever since, and these are in European countries, that crime has decreased, that overdoses have decreased, and it's just the positive effects of decriminalizing hard drugs across the board has saved us money, time, energy, and lives. And so Oregon has become the first state in the country to decriminalize the possession of small amounts of hard drugs such as heroin, cocaine, and LSD, which is amazing because my brother told me that LSD, which is mushrooms and Molly, which I'm not comfortable with taking because I have addictive personality, and the last thing I need to do is be strung out on anything other than sex, weed, and food. My brother told me that DST, which is a form of LSD, allows you to tap into your 8th chakra. And so I want to try it, but I'm really scared. But he has done mushrooms so many times. I am open to having that conversation to anyone and everyone that has ever done mushrooms. Because aside from weed and alcohol, I have done no drugs. and because I'm scary, but I do want to learn from other people's experiences and live vicariously through you. So if that's something you're interested in doing, please, I'd like to have that conversation. So the Drug Addiction Treatment Recovery Act passed with 59% to 41% vote and will revolutionize the way the state treats drug addiction. People suffering from addiction are more effectively treated with healthcare services than with criminal punishment. A healthcare approach includes a health assessment to figure out the needs of people who are suffering from addiction, and it includes connecting them to services that they need. Under the bill, revenue from the state's marijuana tax revenue, which is more than $100 million a year, will fund addiction services, including counseling. The state is adopting a health-based approach to the state's drug crisis by making treatment and recovery services available to anyone who needs it without fear of arrest, persecution, or having to pay for it, which is crazy, right? So to be clear, this does not make hard drugs perfectly legal in the state, but if a person is caught with less than a gram of heroin, I don't know what that looks like, or MDMA, or 2 grams of cocaine or methamphetamine, or 12 grams of psilocybin or mushrooms, or 40 doses of LSD. 40 doses of Molly? Like, that's a lot. Oxycodone, methadone, they could be hit with a $100 fine instead of being arrested and charged with possession. Additionally, the fines could be waived if the person agrees to be evaluated at an addiction recovery center. The bill was supported by organizations across the state, including the state chapter of the American College of Physicians, Oregon Nurses Association, Oregon School of Psychologists Association, Oregon Academy of Family Physicians, and the ACLU. It has also been reported that 1 in 11 state residents is addicted to drugs, and nearly 2 people die every day from drug overdoses in the state. Oh, do they have anything to do there other than drugs? I don't mean to sound, I was not being disrespectful. That was a real question. Estimates by the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission indicate that the bill will result in almost 4,000 fewer residents being convicted of possession of a controlled substance every year. According to reports in 2001, Portugal decriminalized all drugs, and instead of increase in use, there was a decrease in sexually transmitted diseases and overall overdose deaths, which is beautiful. Let me come back because Bill is saying something. What are you saying, Bill? Child support doesn't mean finance. It means support, which also means time, spending, etc. Court doesn't only mean finance. We should change the narrative. The truth, I don't know if you know me for real. I know we just met each other, but let me be clear. I am a father's rights advocate and have been ever since I stopped being a crazy baby mama. And so once upon a time when the children were young, I was that crazy baby mama because I didn't want my kids around your little girlfriend, and I didn't want my kids around your I really didn't care. I love his family, and his family still loves me. And so the family wasn't an issue for me. It was like the fact that I was still in love with Javison, and so I didn't want my kids around somebody else because y'all ain't about to play Dolly House with my kids. Like, y'all ain't about to play Family Guy with my kids. That's not the way it works. And so I used to be mean and mad, and it caused a lot of strife in the relationship. And then I went ahead and I learned a little bit, and I grew up a lot of it, and decided it's a lot easier if you just drop them off at their daddy's house. I don't need child support. Just go see your daddy so he can pay for everything that y'all need. He can feed you. He can deal with the attitudes and everything else. A lot of women that are out here that are mad because the man don't love them no more. But the truth of the matter, baby girl, if you love yourself and drop them damn kids off at their daddy's house and find some self-time for you, your life will be 1,000% better, period. And so in, switching sides, going from the dark side to the light side, I also learned about Social Security 40D, which is in the Social Security Act. Every state gets 40 cents no, I'm lying. Like, it's like a lot. It's 60 cents. 60 cents. I'll look it up. But 60 cents for every dollar that goes through the child support system. So if I put the kid's father on child support and I get $100 a week, the state then gets $60 because I got $100. Because Javison's money went through the system at $100. The state gets 60 cents per every dollar. So they did absolutely nothing but make sure that this MF paid his child support, not because my kid needed to be good, but because the state wanted their money. So I'm fully aware of the bias that takes place in Massachusetts. I'm fully aware of family court and how it perpetuates, not having a father in the house and, being on child support. Very few women are ever put on child support. Like, I'm fully aware the truth. Just so you know, and we're clear, we've had those conversations, and I am deeply entrenched in the fight for men having equal rights as parents, because in today's age, it seems like daddies are doing more than stepping up. They're being 100% active and engaged in doing things that moms aren't even doing. And so though we have an abundance of an amazing moms, we cannot act like some of these toxic women are not harmful in their mothering, and that these children are better off with their fathers, especially when we see throughout the news that so many of these mothers are doing these things to these kids, letting their boyfriends and ex-boyfriends and husbands do these things to kids. Like, yes, it is very important for two parents to be fully engaged in a child, because that's a whole human. That's how a whole human was raised, and that's how a whole human was created, and that's how a whole human should be raised. In other news, before we get to the top of the hour, Georgia Republican who said that black men held back by gangs dealing drugs wins the U.S. House seat. Her candidacy was bolstered by Donald Trump, who has called her the future Republican star. Her name is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She expressed racist views in support for conspiracy theories in a series of online videos, and she won a U.S. House seat representing Northwest Georgia. We're not surprised. Donald Trump said that she is a future Republican star. Greene was heavily favored in the conservative district even before Democratic challenger Kevin Van Ossold suddenly dropped out in September, saying that he was moving out of state because he was like, yo, they racist. They're not even racist. They're racist. I gotta go. Greene thanked her staff and asked supporters to pray for Trump to win the election at the watch party on Tuesday night. In her remarks, Greene pledged to fight hard to make sure that Nancy Pelosi and the squad, you know who the squad is, right? Our four ladies, one of them being our own Ayanna Pressley, and the squad of radical Democrats in the House do not steal anything away from America, because this country was never meant to be a socialist nation, nor were y'all meant to come here. If we were going to talk about the nation for real, Greene, what's the girl name? Marjorie. Your ass wouldn't be here, Marjorie. If we're going to talk about what this nation was supposed to be built on, it wasn't supposed to be built on you being here. Period. Marjorie, I wouldn't be here either, so let's be clear. Or maybe half of me would on my daddy's side, but the other half of me would be somewhere in Africa. I wouldn't be here either, but clearly you would not at all. Greene has claimed that in online videos that black and Hispanic men are being held back by gangs and dealing drugs, and alleged that Islamic invasion of government offices, and accused Jewish billionaire George Soros of collaborating with the Nazis. And so, of course, this is a long list of whatever, but let me be clear. So I'm reading More Money Than God. It's one of my audiobooks. It's an amazing book, right? So reading More Money Than God, George Soros, damn near tries to create a coup in every country he financially dominates. And so if you've never read The Color of Law, please audiobook it or actually read the book and listen how often George Soros uses his money to try and flip Russia or try to steal Ukraine or George Soros is a beast. And to say that he doesn't have a hand in American politics is being 100% naive. To say that he controls American politics and Black Lives Matter might be a little on the conspiracy theorist side, but I truly believe that somewhere in the middle, George Soros is a problem when it comes to American politics and, just pinning both sides against each other so that we don't have a true partnership as Americans, and we don't have it anyways because 67% of Americans voted for Donald Trump. So soapbox, disappear. We've come to the top of the hour. I am Tayla Andre. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing day today. I enjoyed today's show, and I mainly enjoyed today's show because Michelle Wu helped me understand some stuff that I previously could not get answers to. And so I am really happy that we know that Mayor Marty Walsh is the problem when it comes to housing and has always been the problem when it comes to housing, even though he always puts it on urban development and it's HUD and it's this and it's that and the counselors aren't doing this and to point the finger and to blame everyone else when at the end of the day it's you. I'm just glad I finally got an answer. And with that being said, I hope you guys have an amazing day today. And for everything Tayla Andre, please head over to TaylaAndre. I'm slow. Here it is, ANDRE at everything.com. There was something else I did update you about Flynn calling us and saying that he's going to go ahead and circle with Julie Mahir. And we did text Julia and tell her to keep us in the know. I'm definitely going to continue to utilize this platform to make sure that we see the change that we want to be in the world and to hold people accountable for the things that they said they were going to do, especially elected officials. We have everything on tape. We have everything on film. Rewind the tape, play it back. You said you were going to do this thing. You didn't do this thing. Why? How we going to move forward? How you going to right this wrong? And so if there's anybody you feel like we need to talk to, hit me up, 617-459-0041. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. And I hope you have an amazing day.
Finally Home is a must-read step-by-step guide that will equip any first-time home buyer with the knowledge they need to confidently make informed decisions. This book provides answers in simple and clear terms to most, if not all, of the questions you may have about credit, home ownership, and generational wealth. Finally Home equips the reader with the confidence to be engaged with the home buying process without feeling vulnerable or exploited. Tayla Made Real Estate Easy is not just a catchy hashtag. It is real estate agent and radio personality Tayla Andre's goal. A goal to simplify one of the most challenging processes you will go through as an adult. A goal to educate you properly on credit and teach you the strategies to finding the home of your dream. It is not just a good book or an easy read. It is the secret to a seamless home buying experience.